Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Anda sedang menonton agenda AWANI secara langsung dari studio AWANI Bukit Kuala Lumpur. Dan anda cukup bertuah malam ini kerana kita ada seorang pakar yang begitu berpengaruh bukan saja di Afrika, Asia tetapi juga di seluruh dunia kerana beliau mengetuai satu rangkaian pemimpin-pemimpin muda dunia, terutamanya melihat kepada ruang perniagaan tapi dihubungkan dengan politik dan juga sosial menerusi organisasi yang begitu meningkat naik sekarang, World Islamic Economic Forum, WIEF. Dalam konteks itu, saya ingin berbicara bahasa Inggeris. I would like to introduce my very great guest for today, Mr. Ibrahim Patel. He's the chair for WIEF Young Leaders Network, and some of you might remember the story about me chairing a session or moderating a session at WIEF in Dubai last year. That's where I first met Ibrahim, but I will tell you that story later. But the first story I want to tell is right now, today and tomorrow, there's WIEF Idealab, they call it, 2015, and the title is The Birth of an Asian Startup Revolution. This is because if you want to change the world, if you want to go into business even, you must look at the business landscape for the future, not now, or just from the past. And one of the most important component of that to be looked at are the startups. And I think for the first time, and this is the first Idealab for WIEF, which has been around for quite some time. So I want to straight away go to Ibrahim. It's easy for me to straight away pull out the press release, look at the schedule for today and tomorrow, and just pick out the sessions. But I want to look at the fundamental thing before that, which is, and we've been discussing this since Dubai, you can't do things the normal way anymore, and because of that, you need new ideas. However, for young people or new people to get in, they have to go through the people already established in the ecosystem, business or otherwise. And I think that's among the main hurdle for a startup, because they've got to convince the financiers, the funders, who will be asking for things that they don't have, like collaterals, prove to me how you're going to make money out of it, when great brands that we know now, like Twitter, don't even know at first how they're going to make money for years. So tell me if I'm wrong, and what do you want to achieve from Idealab?
Well, thank you very much for having me here on your program this evening. I thought since Dubai you'd never invite me back again.
I would have thought so too.
But you raise a very important point, and that is that the conventional wisdom of the business landscape has changed. The old paradigm was large conglomerates, big burly businesses with multiple outlets, millions of employees. That has changed because the new business paradigm is starting off a business that is boundaryless, not confined by any borders at all, not confined by time. So it's no longer about doing business from 8 in the morning to 5 in the evening. It's about a 24-hour business paradigm. There's 365 days a year that spans the globe. And you don't have to have a big sales force. You don't have to have a lot of logistics to span the globe any longer. So the problem is that those that have already been through business are steeped in the idea that you have to have all of those logistics and infrastructure to make a successful business. People talk about the largest retailer, Walmart, which started off in 1950. Sam Walton started off with a single store, grew it to 1,600 stores across the globe with 1.5 million employees. This year, after 21 years, only 21 years in existence, Amazon is a larger cap than Walmart's is. And they don't even have any stores. And they only have 154,000 employees across the globe. So that tells you that the way business is done now is no longer confined to the old paradigm. So we have to shift the way we think about business. We have to shift the way we think about the business landscape and how we want to see the business of the future. And the future business is not large conglomerates. It's smaller businesses. It's more efficient businesses, it's more agile businesses who can adapt to a market as quickly as possible, because the market changes as quickly as Twitter. Because If I have a great product, someone's going to tweet about me. And if I have a bad product, they're going to give me a bad review and my business is going to go down. So businesses have to be agile as possible to change. And so we see that kind of trend coming up in a younger generation who are saying that they want to start a business or they want to create a business that's no longer confined by any boundaries. They want to have a business that not only is making money, but is effecting change, that is making the world a better place for all of us to live in. So the old paradigm of business was you created a product which you sold and you made a great deal of profit out of it, and that was your motive, was making a profit. Today, the younger generation is saying, I want to create a product that will make society better, that will make life better for you and I. And that's how we are seeing the change. And so the established business paradigm is slowly shifting. And we have to change the way we do things because humans by nature, we keep constantly evolving. And business is about evolution as well. So if you're not evolving at the pace business is changing, soon your business is going to be out of business. If you take, for instance, IBM, which was the blue chip company of the US, how many of us know about IBM any longer? Businesses have changed. Kodak, which started off in the filmmaking industry, was the #1 camera producer, is no longer around. So it's the way we shift and shift the way we think about business as well.
If we put on top of that the layer of Islamic economy, would it skew it in a different way? Would it even add more hurdles? Because it's not like during the Umayyad Caliphate or the Abbasiyah Caliphate for that. So why now, after a few years of WIEF, that you have a very specific focus on the startup?
Because startups are the next wave of growth. So if you take WIEF itself, it's a global organization that's influencing business in various spheres. We try and reinvent ourselves to become more relevant and continue being relevant because the landscape changes all the time and you have to keep in touch with what's happening. And startups have become the new wave. People have realized that to create a mass economic growth, which is what is required in many emerging economies, because large companies are laying off workers, what do you do with all those unemployed people? So smaller businesses are starting to employ them, and you have to support them. Currently, startups and younger businesses don't have a great deal of support. Yes, there are VC companies that are throwing money at the wave of new startups because they think it's the next big name that's coming out. But a greater deal of support has to be created for them to make them sustainable. So that support comes in the form of taking these people or these young people that have ideas, giving them a sort of a conversation with experienced business people, guiding them through a process and allowing them to interact and network with high net worth individuals and investors.
I have to go for the first break, but once we are back, let's zoom in into specific examples. And you've met. I was just there once for WIEF in Dubai, maybe one more time before, a few years back in Johor Bahru. But the group of people that I've met, they all have tremendous ideas and stuff. But how do we really utilize that and move them on to the next level field? Because right now in the old paradigm, they don't really have a chance. But maybe in the blue ocean of the new paradigm, it's actually advantageous for them as compared to the Walmarts of the world. Let's discuss that after this short break. If you haven't been there, go to Park Royal in Bukit Bintang tomorrow. Even if you're not registered, I just dare you, because it's the spirit of startup, the new economy, the new paradigm. Just go there. And you can meet great people like the one sitting right beside me right now, Mr. Ibrahim Patel, the chair of the WIEF Young Leaders Network. But more importantly, he has helped to start a new event called the Idealab, and it's the startup empowerment platform. We were just discussing about the macro and philosophy behind it a bit, about how we must go to the new paradigm. But something is easier said than done. So maybe if we dive straight away into the examples that you've come across through WIEF and otherwise, based on what we've discussed just now.
Well, before you went for the ad break, you spoke about the blue ocean, that, you know, there's this blue ocean out there. It reminds me that you have to actually lose sight of the shore before you can explore the ocean. The problem is that we're still wanting to cling to the shore because it's comfortable for us. So a number of these young startups have come about, and what they are now doing is cross-platform collaboration. They are thinking about building. So, you know, I'm not going to give you specific companies because obviously it becomes a marketing splurge for them. But we have young startups that are looking at solutions in education. How do you change the way people access education? It's a very important thing. How do you change the way people access funding for education? So a young student wants to go to university. He doesn't have money. He goes out and tries to get a bursary. How do you get funding directly through to him? How do you assist him in those? So those are the kind of solutions people are coming up with. You have young startups that are talking about how do they change the way we think about technology. When are we able to wear technology? Today we use our handphones, we use our mobiles, but how do you allow a person to now immerse himself in technology where he can utilize that technology to read his medical history, his diagnosis? How can he use that technology to determine where he's going to be at a particular period in time? So if you have, you know, we all have GPSs on our phone, but how do you track your laptop, for instance? Someone takes your laptop away. How do you track it? How do you use Wi-Fi to track all these little instruments of ours? So it's these kind of concepts that people are coming about and talking about how they can utilize the online technology platform, because one of the things that has changed the business sphere is cloud computing. Cloud computing has opened up huge paradigms. People are now talking about taking their businesses directly to the consumer, allowing consumers to make changes to products using cloud computing. So these are the way that startups are harnessing the atmosphere. But very important is that a lot of these startups are passionate about what they are doing. They're living and breathing these startups or these businesses. And so the idea is that, you know, we borrow from what the chairman of WIEF, Tun Musa Hitam, has always spoken about. How do you create a bottom-up approach? Because everybody's looking at the top. How do you support the top? We need to support the bottom. How do we create a bottom-up approach where we take young people and, you know, very importantly, everyone talks about the big names. But those big names obviously were startups. They didn't become big names overnight. They grew those businesses as startups. So we support those startups. We support the fact that you have to create a space for them. And this is what Idealab is doing. And it's part of the process of programs that the Young Leaders Network has. So we have a Young Fellows program, which takes people who have a bit of skill, who have experience, who have businesses, and give them more information and more skills and allow them to open up their leadership qualities. Idealab takes people who have ideas, meets them with investors and with mentors, and allows them to then start creating their own synergies and collaboration. So one of the very important things that we have found is that our young fellows who have gone through the Young Fellows program are meeting with the startups at Idealab and now sharing their experiences and saying, I can now mentor you because I've been through a program. So we now have, instead of an older generation that's mentoring a younger generation, we have a younger generation that's mentoring a young generation as well. So there's a lot of change that's taking place. And, you know, it's good fortune that we have that it's supported by an older generation as well.
Yeah, or at the end of the day, nowadays, people say it's all about money. Especially if I'm a startup, my whole point is to get that first funding. But I believe sometimes, if you were to do new things in a new way, you might have to do it all together the other way around. Do it first, and then worry about the money later. For example, I mean, not just stay on that traction, but if money comes, then that's fine. So how would you break that perception that if I don't get funding, no matter how good an idea I have, it will just die? Because even in Dubai, when we were discussing this and we were in the panel discussing Gen Y, money was not the main discussion at that time. And today, both you and me at the Idealab, on the Idealab sideline, we've met a few young Malaysians who still look at that, you know, I have to answer this commercial question, I have to make money. When, for me, what problem are you solving? Because at the end of the day, whether it's a product or whether it's a service, you must solve something. And that's the value proposition to move forward. I will let you answer that after this second break that we're going to have. But I will also ask for your help to also look at how it's going on in the continent of Africa. Because you're from South Africa, and when I was in Dubai, I was so amazed to look at new entrepreneurs from Africa in that sense. And, you know, if any hurdle were to be great, Africa is one of it. Just being there in one of the least developed areas of the world. But they don't use that as an excuse not to be successful. In fact, that's why they are successful, because they want to beat that. So let's discuss that after this short break. You are still watching Agenda AWANI, and I'm still here taking out things from Idealab 2015, WIEF's Idealab. And I was there in Dubai for WIEF. I hope I will be invited again to WIEF in November back home in Kuala Lumpur. But because I have the chair of the Young Leaders Network of WIEF, that will be given, I think. But what's more important is not the name of the event, but my experience in Dubai was so empowering to meet people that I've never met before, and a lot of them are young, and they have these great ideas. However, when I benchmark that back home in Malaysia, we also have that. But there's one thing that I notice, is the confidence to just go out there, throw your ideas and rally support for it. And that's what I want to ask Ibrahim about, because when we were in the same panel in Dubai, the lady from Africa just, you know, she just amazed me by the sheer willpower of what she was saying. And she made it in Europe and in Africa by pushing the brand that she's pushing. So you've met a lot of Malaysians. Can you please draw a comparison for us on average? Of course, we can't have a unique perspective of each and everyone, but on the average.
I think with the Africa example is when you have very little to lose, you're not afraid of what you're going to lose.
Okay.
So you have no other option but to make a success.
Okay.
You either get lost or you make a success. So you have two choices. Most people will choose that they do not want to be at the loser end.
Yep.
And the problem with all of us, wherever we are in the world, no matter who we are, we have one greatest fear, and that is the fear of failure.
Okay.
We need to get over that.
How do we get over that?
You harness fear. Because what happens with
Use
failure?
it. That's what I
you
say.
use it. You harness it. What happens with failure? It only makes you stronger.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Once you fail, what else can happen to you? Nothing else.
Shame?
What is shameful about it? Donald Trump went bankrupt 4 times.
My neighbor would say, yeah, you're a bankrupt.
Yeah, but Donald Trump's been bankrupt 4 times. Now, he's seen as a doyen of the corporate world. So fear of failure is not something that we should be afraid of.
Okay.
We should not be afraid. We must harness it. Because the moment you harness that fear, it's like going into the ocean and trying to swim with sharks. You're afraid of sharks. But the moment you swim with them for a while, you're not afraid of them any longer. So you just conquer that fear.
Okay.
And the change has happened in Africa is that people have realized that you don't have to be afraid of failure. There are plenty of examples of people who have failed multiple times but have succeeded. Take, for instance, the great names that we see around today who have tried their business hand a number of times and have failed, but today are successful, and we use them as role models. We say, that person is particularly successful, let's emulate his business. So I think that wherever we are in the world, the greatest fear we have is of failure. Let's conquer that, let's get away from it. With Africa, the challenge is that we are a growing continent. We are seen as the new frontier, as the next wave of doing business. And we have the fastest growing economies in the world. So, if we look at the world in 2050, the world in 2050 is going to be totally different to where we are today. China is not going to be the biggest economy. China could still remain the biggest economy, but its population will be surpassed by India. But guess who's going to be at number 4? Nigeria. Nigeria and Africa is going to be the 4th largest population and the 4th largest economy in the world. What does that hold for us? It holds a lot of opportunity. So when we're thinking about business, it's not about what what's going to be on the landscape today and tomorrow. It's what's going to be in the future. That's why we have to change the way we think about business as a futuristic strategy. So, you know, you asked earlier on the question about the Islamic economy. And Islamic economy is seen as the new wave as well. You know, with $3.2 trillion, depending on who you're speaking to, anything between $3 trillion and $3.2 trillion of annual business and growing. And it's not confined to Muslim countries any longer. It's across the globe. Everyone wants in. Europe wants into the Islamic economy, not because they see the benefits of an Islamic economy, but because they see the benefits of doing business with it. So we have to change the way and our perception of how we look at things, because everything else around us is changing. So what I've seen across, or I've seen the similarities between, you know, you asked about Malaysia and Africa. Both societies are very resilient. We're always up to the challenge. But the one thing that we have in common is a fear of failure, a fear of shame. It might also be a cultural perspective, as you pointed out, that your neighbor might think that you have failed, and so the shame comes out of it. But I think the younger generation is starting to learn that you don't have to worry about all of this, because no one's worried too much about what society thinks about them any longer. The younger generation, frankly, couldn't care. And so as the younger generation starts coming about, we need to give them the space. One of the greatest things that we could give to a younger generation is to listen to them, to hear what is it exactly that they want out of a future that they themselves are creating. We're not creating the future any longer. The future has already been created by the younger generation.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim Patel. I wish we could go on and on, but that's all the time we have. I will forever be indebted to Tun Musa Hitam for introducing us. And it's true what you said, Tun. He has said and spoken here, and I think there's a lot of things to be taken away. Thank you so much. Terima kasih kepada anda telah menonton. Hantarkan pandangan anda sendiri kepada pelbagai platform yang Astro AWANI ada. Kita ada Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter dan sebagainya. Ataupun terus buat turun aplikasi mudah alih iOS dan Android supaya anda boleh memberi pandangan dan juga menonton secara langsung di gadget mudah alih anda. Jangan lupa pergi ke Sedia Astro juga kerana ada Fantasi AWANI Premier League untuk BPL di situ. Sekian, selamat malam, terima kasih. Jangan lupa saya akan berada di Park Royal Hotel Bukit Bintang besok untuk Idealab WIEF.